Welcome back from the rest hold, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of a break because we've got our main event to start getting into here, and it's going to be a top rope list. We're going to break down our favorite tag teams and stables of all time, and it's not just necessarily WWE. We could apply it from all different sorts of companies and all different kinds of ways, whether it's a stable of, 20 people, a duo of like a regular tag team scenario, people that have won championships, people that have been tag teams for just a day. Anything really that applies when it comes to teams and stables in wrestling history, they're all up for grabs here. So if you don't know what a top rope list is, well, it's basically a list. There you go. That's it. But essentially it breaks down to our top three is going to go bottom rope, middle rope, top rope. Bottom rope is the bronze medal, middle rope is the silver medal, and the top rope is the gold. So let's start breaking down some different ones that we have here, and I, do this usually kind of on the fly when it comes to how many we need to do. We could do a top 10, a top 50, etc., etc. On smarkoutmoment.com right now, I have a list of my top 10 as well as 4 extra honorable mentions, so I'm not going to break down all 14 of them. I'm going to keep mine to a top 5. What other numbers do you guys got around here? Then we'll just kind of go around in circles and stuff like that. Drew, how many do you have?
I have about 50.
All right.
Yeah, you're doing
I have
5.
I have 5, don't worry. And by the 50, I just had WWE's greatest 50 tag teams, so that's all it was, but no.
Oh, were
I
they
have
the
5.
answers to the next Ask Him?
Yep.
All right, name all 50 teams on the WWE's 50 tag teams. All right, you guys got 23. Let's go. Come on.
All right, we're at
Guys, come on.
49. We have one more left to go. This Ask Him edition is 13 minutes fucking long.
And what I was going through this list just to refresh my memory. Some of the tag teams back in like the 80s and 90s have the worst fucking names ever.
Yeah,
Some
there's
terrible names.
there's
so
bad
cheesy
people in
and
all decades.
Yeah. So, but God, there were some terrible ones back then.
How many do you have it narrowed down to, though? That you were talking
I-
about?
I have 5, but if we just go over 3, that's fine.
We'll bounce around. Kaylin, how many do you have?
I have my top 3 and then 4 quick honorable mentions.
All right, so we'll do a top 5 when it comes to that, basically.
I have a question. Am I allowed to include teams from other companies? Because most
Yeah.
of my... I got a few
You
that
can't say
are in
that.
other ones.
Yep, from any company, any time in wrestling.
All right.
So how many do you have, Wego?
I have 5.
All right, Peyton, do you have 5 as well?
Yeah, because 3 ain't enough.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just throw mine out there for number 5 is the Nation of Domination. I loved this back in the day. I thought that they were a good group of people that played off well with each other, and the group that I want to specify too, because there's a couple different incarnations. It's Farouk, The Rock, Mark Henry, D'Lo, and Kama. Owen Hart was always kind of weird to me when he was in that, and when they had Savio Vega and who was the other guy? Crush. He's like, what? Like, and to hell with Clarence Mason and those other people. They didn't last that long. The core group of that 5, that set of the 5 people, that was just awesome. They kicked ass. Their theme song kicked ass. They were so like passionate with the promos and stuff. They were doing something that we had never seen before in wrestling and stuff, and still haven't really seen. And there's a reason that people talk about bringing that back. And it's because it was so fucking cool. So, what's your number 5? Let's go around here. Who wants to go first?
Well, for me, one of my favorite tag teams is actually out of TNA. I've always thought that they just came up with really fun sequences. Motor City Machine Guns. It's probably going to be the only person that picks them on here, but I love those guys, and it's a shame they're not together anymore.
I do have a TNA tag team in my honorable mentions, but it's not them.
Is it Beer Money?
Yep.
Nice.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
what I put in my honorable mentions too.
Yeah. I couldn't quite put them in a top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, part of that's because it's TNA. Part of it's just because it was like, well, I like these other teams better and stuff. But Motor City Machine Guns, they are a good team. They were very entertaining in the ring and stuff. Like them. Thumbs up. Who wants to go next? Number 5.
I'll go next, I guess. And my number 5, it might be higher on some of your guys' list, but my number 5 is Edge and Christian. And they really revolutionized the tag team division during the early 2000s, late 1990s. So I don't have the Dudley Boys because I don't know them as much, and I hate the Hardy because they're fucking Hardys. So Edge and Christian to me have always been my favorite out of the three teams. And, they created two. Each of them have respectable careers, and both of them will be Hall of Famers. Edge already being one, so they're my number 5.
One of them had a respectable career. The other one was a mooch.
Well, yes, that was a good point. So one of them got his success based on the other person's retirement. So
Are we talking about the Guerreros?
Oh,
yep, I guess there's
the
another
spirit of Jeff Hardy.
Christian actually won a world title.
Oh, poor Chavo.
one. See, if Matt Hardy was in WWE and Jeff Hardy died, do you think he would get that Jeff Hardy rub?
No.
No.
Nah.
No.
Okay, he's fat.
He'd have to be in WWE again. That ain't gonna happen. Kayla to Mike, who wants to go next?
I'll go next. Number 5, I would have to say the Brothers of Destruction. I know a lot of people don't rate these guys as highly, but I've loved their relationship and how it's changed over the years from when Kane debuted up until just recently when they've had storylines together. So seeing them work together, especially like in the early 2000s, I think was really cool. And since they're two of my favorite longtime guys, I'd have to put them way up there. So they are my number 5.
I actually forgot about them. Damn. I don't know if that would adjust anything else, but at the very least, they would be a 5th one in the honorable mentions. Yeah.
Because they were pretty dominant for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of both of them, so kind of can't go wrong. If you like two guys and they have like the same sort of gimmick, it's pretty much going to work as a tag team. Peyton, what's your number 5?
Well, that transitions very well into what my number 5 is, because my number 5 is Money Inc. You want to talk about two gimmicks that were form-fitted to be paired with each other? It's the guy with all the money and the guy who steals your money. Of course you put those guys together. Instant heat. Both of these guys, all they had to do was just flash some money or just be like, hey, pay your taxes. And
That
they
was
got
the
so much heat. And in the background, you got fucking Virgil there licking his lips, counting the money. It's just so entertaining with something that's so two-dimensional, I guess. But yet, at that time period, that's what was being awesome. And I love that tag team. They were so much fun to watch.
Hey, I mean, I have Money Inc. on my list, too. And they're as basic as you can get, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who's somebody that everybody hates? IRS. All right, well, let's just make a guy called IRS. And he's going to be, of course, tagged up with the $1 Million Man. Because how weird would it be if they weren't? Like, there's the $1 Million Man's on the roster and IRS, and they're just kind of like, yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Well, you know what the craziest thing is both of these guys, Ted DiBiase and Mike Rotundo, were workers that had careers in their own right beforehand. I mean, this was both in the twilight of both of their careers. Mm-hmm. They had made names for themselves elsewhere. And come to WWE, and people always like to say, oh, WWE, they take people from other places, they give them new names, they strip them everything that was great. Not these guys. They gave them the best purpose they ever had in their careers.
Damn right. More people know IRS than anything else that Mike Rotundo did.
Oh, you mean PK Wall Street?
If only they did a feud between the two where IRS took all of $1 million Ted DiBiase's money because he couldn't pay for anything.
Oh, no, didn't they? No, they did that at the fucking
gimmick
battle at the gimmick battle royal at WrestleMania 17. Fucking IRS wins it, but $1 Million Man comes out and he just gives him a briefcase saying, "Yeah, why don't you get out of here and let me win this?"
And it's like, that's so perfect, it's just like playing up the gimmick and just having a lot of fun and stuff. Yeah, I loved Money Inc. They're definitely on my list. Not in my top 5, but go ahead and, click on the website and find out where they ended up placing. So top 4 we're at right now. I went with the Hart Foundation. I actually almost put Owen Hart and British Bulldog separately on this list, and then I was just like, you know what? Throw in Brian Pillman, throw in Jim Neidhart, throw in Bret Hart. That group, again, very similar to the Nation of Domination. Of course, I skew towards this kind of an era because that's when I was like super, super hardcore into wrestling. Hart Foundation is great. I mean, Bret Hart was always one of my favorites, and he was great as a babyface, but when he got into this group, he really worked as a heel. And it was really interesting to see them play off the anti-American kind of thing that they were doing and stuff. And Owen Hart is fantastic. British Bulldog was always kind of cool, even though he was kind of boring in retrospect. Like, he never had great promos, and he wasn't, like, the best in the ring or whatever, but there was something captivating about Bulldog, and I always liked him tagging up with Owen Hart. It was, like, the power and the speed, and Pillman was, like, the fucking wild case, and Neidhart was whatever the fuck Neidhart is. I loved this group, though, and even when they brought back the idea of it, where they had Kid and Natalia and D.H. Smith, it wasn't, great or anything like that, but it was still kind of cool to see a new Hart Foundation. So, Hart Foundation gets number 4 in my list. So, are we going around in the same order here, or anybody want to jump in beforehand? Alrighty then, way go.
Alright, well, normally this position would be reserved for someone like a Dudley Boyz, LOD, a big name spot. But I've decided that in every top rope list that I do from now on, I'm going to include Curryman. So I'm giving it to Curryman and Shark Boy.
Yes!
Wasn't there a third guy?
Super Eric.
Oh, that's why I don't remember him.
Yeah, he's the one I left out deliberately.
That's a good choice. Leaving him out, that doesn't dilute it. I can't remember who went next. I think it was Drew.
Yep. And my number 4 is something that'll make Peyton happy, and it's a shame I didn't put him higher on my list, but I'm going to go with the group that named Mega Power Station, the Mega Powers. I'm going to go with them because I want to, and I will. I don't have to really explain. I think everyone kind of knows what the Mega Powers is, so I don't
Name
think
one
too much
fact about the Mega Powers.
Well, Hulk Hogan was the part of it.
Who's the manager?
Well, she was a valet, so I'm going to go with Miss Elizabeth.
All right, name 5 facts about it. So next
And
answer.
every fact, there's about 170 of them, will tell you when you get there.
I got an article, the top 20 facts about the Mega Powers. Let's ask him. Go.
They had a feud with the Twin Towers at one point.
Who's the Twin Towers?
2 fat guys. I think, what was it? Was it Big Boss Man?
It's Big Boss Man and Akeem, the African Dream, baby.
He wasn't wrong. They were kind of pudgy.
Kinda. All right, Kaylin, what's your number 4?
Number 4, I'm going to go with a relatively recent one, and that would be The Shield. I've loved The Shield ever since they debuted on the main roster. They were super dominant, such a good heel faction. Rollins and Reigns' attributes were very good complements to one another. I'm hoping that sometime in the future they're able to do another tag team run, even if it's not those two, if it's some combination of the 3 Shield guys. I'd love to see them hold the belts once again. So number 4 is The Shield for me.
Peyton, round us out. What's number 4?
Well, Drew took my one. I'm going with Mega Powers. You talk about 2 of the biggest names in the industry at the time, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, joining together. The only thing that sucks is when you kind of look back at it and you think of all the backstage things that were at play. Freaking Randy Savage finally getting his chance with the title, and Hulk Hogan still has got to be in the fucking spotlight the whole time he's with that title. It's John Cena and CM Punk the first time.
And he's got his wandering eyes, looking at Miss Elizabeth and all.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now name us like 10 facts about the Mega Powers.
Okay. Let's see. The Mega Powers was formed after... I'm not going to go into it. I could tell you a whole story. Perhaps we'll do an episode of something else about it.
Sweet.
On Mega Powers Radio. Inception. So my bottom rope is the NWO, and I couldn't quite decide on how I would group it together, because I do like the Outsiders by themselves. I do like them with Hulk Hogan. And to an extent, I like the idea of everybody in the whole fucking company as a part of either Hollywood or Wolfpack, because it was kind of cool. It was crazy, and it eventually became too nuts and stuff like that, but it still was kind of fun that it was like these 2 rival factions that were sort of the same and playing off the same gimmick. You couldn't be a wrestling fan in the 90s and not be a fan of like one of the groups. They were cool. Like, they had as basic of a t-shirt as you can get, but still kind of cool. Theme songs were cool. Basically, like, that was the point of them, was that they were the cool guys. And you had WCW, which was all like the Larry Zbyskos and stuff like that, trying to fight it out. NWO, they were the badasses. I thought that they were fantastic, and that actually was the only reason why I ever would check out WCW, other than a couple other people like Jericho and stuff. NWO gets my bottom rope, little bronze medal for them. Way go. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Edge and Christian, and it's funny. When I was growing up, I was a very big Hardy Boys fan as opposed to Edge and Christian. And looking back at them, Edge and Christian are the only ones that have aged very well out of the trio of the teams. The Hardy Boys, Jesus Christ, if you go back and look at them and look at some of the shit they wore, it's for the same reasons that I pick on Dolph Ziggler. I've got to pick on them for all these days. But yeah, Edge and Christian were a very fun tag team. They had very good singles careers, more so Edge. And they've given us countless moments as single stars and as a tag team. The 5-second pose before or after matches, a lot of their backstage skits with Mick Foley. They had everything. They were entertaining both inside and out the ring.
Drew, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is what Kalen alluded to earlier with the Shield. When the Shield debuted, I was at the event, and ever since then, they've had a special place in the when it comes to watching wrestling. And some of the greatest. Even though we get tired of 6-man tag matches, these guys were probably the best for a while at these 6-man tag matches. And you always, and when it came to their promos, you always had Dean having a little bit of crazy, Seth saying some political crap, and then Roman Reigns with the one-liners. So it's unfortunate that they ended the way they did, because I was at the event as well, where they Seth Rollins turns on both Dean and Roman, and it's a Shield. So I got to see the beginning and the end, so I have to put them in my top 5. So they get the bronze for me.
Kalen?
I'm going to go with the team that I'm very glad to see back, and that would be the Dudley Boys. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the Dudley Boys. They have great ring gear. I know they do the same couple of spots every match, but I like all of those spots, so I never really get sick of seeing them. The crowd interaction with it's a lot of fun. I know they're just back now to put over the younger guys, and I got respect for that. They teamed up with Stacy Keibler, so they got that. I just think they're really fun, and I've always enjoyed the Dudley Boys. So they are my bottom rope number 3 bronze.
Peyton, who gets the bronze?
Now, the bronze is going to go to someone that I haven't seen anybody even mention, and it's an absolute shame, because this is actually one of the greatest damn tag teams of all time. The Brainbusters. Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, 2 of the toughest damn dudes in the world out there, except for Danny Hodge. These guys will go out there and just absolutely have a total slobber knocker, kicking the shit out of whoever they're in the ring there with. And freaking Arn Anderson, best damn freaking spine buster in the business. I just like these guys. And they didn't have the best run in WWE, which was a shame. But you go back and watch these guys teaming together through NWA and their time in the Horsemen, kicked a lot of ass.
What year did they come into WWE? Was it like
89, wasn't it?
No, not that far. Really?
It was before Flair came in.
Oh, you mean 89?
That's what I said.
I thought you said 99. I was like, wait, that can't be right.
No. 89, 90. I think it was something like that.
$9.99? That was my impression of a tumbleweed.
That's a good tumbleweed. So, middle rope. My silver medal goes to D-Generation X. Shawn Michaels, favorite wrestler of all time. Of course, he's going to get high up on this list in some capacity, because DX was fucking great. Him and Triple H were such a good duo. And all I got to do is point to one segment to prove it, and that's when Triple H won the European Championship. That is one of my favorite things that's ever happened in anything in wrestling history. The way that they pulled that off, it's just like... you just have to watch it if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I liked Chyna's role in that, even though Chyna was, kind of an oddity. Rick Rude, I can give or take. I mean, he really wasn't there for the most part, for as much as I liked DX. But Chyna was something different, She was different from all the other women that had been in the company at that point. And even though she wasn't like a talker like Michaels and Triple H were, her presence added something just weird to it, and it was interesting. Then DX got even better, I would say, when it came to X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws, and they were goofier baby faces and stuff like that. Awesome merchandise, great theme song, one of my favorite theme songs of all time. Just the promos alone are reason enough for me to give these my middle rope. So DX, really high up there on my list. Wago, what's your number 2?
So for my number 2, I have The Shield. You've got 3 guys that were just booked, probably better than WWE's ever booked anybody. During that time, they were so well protected. They were always a threat against whoever they were. And when they focused on their singles and tag careers, with Seth and Reigns winning the tag belts and Dean Ambrose winning the US title, they looked strong then too. They just did a fantastic job, and be it against Goldust and Cody Rhodes or against the Wyatt family, they had consistent good matches. And for one period of time in wrestling, when there was a 6-man tag main event, you didn't cringe.
Drew?
My number 2 will not be on anyone else's list, but, it's going to be Cody Rhodes and Goldust, which might be weird to say, but the storyline they did back in 2013 where they both lost their jobs, and then Dusty Rhodes risked his job for those two to get back in, and they did get back into WWE, and they eventually went on to win the WWE Tag Team titles. I thought it was poetic, and I actually really enjoyed that whole time period when they were WWE Tag Team Champions, and when Cody Rhodes turned into Stardust. Just see those two were an amazing tag team, and it's unfortunate that the one time that they had their own feud against each other, it didn't work out because it was terrible. But I just really enjoyed what they did, and I'm gonna go with them as my number 2.
Kalen?
My middle rope is a team that Drew had mentioned earlier, and that would be E&C, Edge and Christian, for a lot of the reasons that he already brought up. But I will add that I also enjoyed their shenanigans, the goofy promos, the giant foam cowboy hats, the songs on kazoos, and the fact that they totally reek of awesomeness.
And Peyton, your number 2?
Number 2 is The Shield. 3 guys coming up from developmental in one of the most impressive fashions they've debuted a group ever. Maybe except for the Nexus. But the difference is they botched the Nexus a couple months later. The Shield, they stuck to their guns. They had these guys look like true stars all the way up until the final moments and then beyond. And we have not seen the end for the Shield. I think in 5 more years, we're going to look back on this, and I think the Shield is going to creep up to number 1 on my list. I think we're due for a reunion of them, possibly in the next few months. It almost looks like it's heading down that path. But it's going to happen sooner or later, and we're going to get even more Shield goodness. So for now, number 2, but in the annals of time, when we're looking back in a few more years, Shield might quite possibly be the greatest group of guys of all time.
Shield's on everybody's list. That's great. Just goes to show you, if WWE does something right, they can do it really fucking well. And if they do it wrong, well, then you get some other tag teams out there. But my top rope, gold medal, is going to go to the New Age Outlaws. And I know that I mentioned that they were a part of DX before, but I still separate them to an extent. Before they were in DX, they were still doing such awesome stuff as the New Age Outlaws. And I give them a lot of credit for being able to do this too, based off of what they started from, because lest we not forget, it was Rockabilly and the real Jeff Jarrett. That's how these two just started getting together. That's terrible. That's the equivalent of when we take these two random people nowadays and we go, they're just going to put them together. Most of the time it doesn't work. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's decent. Very, very rarely is it good, and very, 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 very rarely is it fucking great like the New Age Outlaws. They took this and they just ran with it. They ended up being one of the best acts in the entire Attitude Era, whether they were in DX or not. And even when they were in DX, they were able to do their own thing a little bit separately, which is something that stands out too. I mean, you could have gotten swallowed up with DX and just been part of DX, but they still went out there, did the, you didn't know. They still were classified as the New Age Outlaws. They were able to come back in, 2013? I think at the tail end of that or something like that. And everybody was just like, whoa, DX is back, or New Age Outlaws is back. fucking fantastic. Not, these fucking old guys. They gave him a tag title run, and people were supportive of it. They have a match with the Ascension, and at the time, the Ascension wasn't beat to shit like they are now. And who gets cheered? The New Age Outlaws and stuff. New Age Outlaws is by far my favorite tag team of all time. I don't think anything else really matches up, because if I boil it down to a duo, specifically two, who has better chemistry than these two? I can't think of any, so they get my gold medal. Wago, who you going with for number one?
Well, pretty much the same thing. Because of me having to put the Mythical Curryman on my list, I was kind of like, DX or New Age Outlaws. Why not both? Two of my favorite wrestlers are Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and then you've got the New Age Outlaws, who I consider the best actual tag team of all time. For pretty much the same reasons that you said. Road Dogg's mic work was fan-fucking-tastic, and Billy played his part with the hot tags all the time, so they just had a great chemistry, they worked well together, and there's no point in me going on about Triple H and Shawn Michaels' career, because I'd be here all day. No, and X-Pac did a thing once.
Now, since I mentioned him earlier, what do you think about Rick Rude in that? Does it even pop up as him being a part of DX?
I don't consider him a part of DX. I consider him a very, very minor role. I consider him an associate member as opposed to a full-on member.
Kind of like Tori?
Yeah, same boat. It was, you had something to do with DX. You wasn't really in DX.
Yeah.
That's only because he wasn't there very long. I think if he was there for longer, you would have seen his role play out more. Because he was the bankroll.
Mm-hmm.
He was the reason they were able to get away with all that, because if these guys were rebels and they were breaking all the rules, then there has to be a point where the company's like, all right, well, we're cutting you off. And you need a guy like a Rick Rude to back you up.
Still doesn't... I mean, I don't remember exactly how it came about, but looking back on that, why was Rick Rude the money?
Because Ted DiBiase had already left.
Oh, he was gone at that point. Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. And IRS must have left too, and that's why Rick Rude still had his money.
They left, but they weren't able to take the money with them, so they gave it to Rick Rude.
Yeah, it's like money laundering or something.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, what is your number one?
Well, I had a tough choice. I mean, at one point I thought Brian Kendrick and Paul London, and then the Steiner brothers came to mind. But for my number one, I went with Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, which might be a weird tag team to put as a number one, but these two are two of my favorites of all time. Is Chris Benoit, he's a shitty person, but we're all shitty people if you think about it. Also, they had some of the greatest tag team matches of that time in SmackDown history. So, overall, my favorite tag team of all time.
Kalen, your gold medal goes to...
Well, you may have noticed that my number 2 and number 3 were Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys, so it may come as no surprise that my top rope number 1 pick is Team Extreme, Jeff, Matt, and Lita. It's one team that I was always excited to see every single week. Those 3 teams revolutionized the division at that point in time. I mean, the tables, ladders, and chairs matches that they did at WrestleMania and SummerSlam are part of some of my favorite tag team matches of all time. What became of them in the later years is kind of a shame, admittedly, but at their peak, in my mind, they were it. So, number 1, I'm going with the Hardys.
It surprised me there. I thought you were going to go with the Truth Commission. Or the Headbangers. Peyton, please tell me you didn't go with, the Body Donnas or something.
Well, if Sunny was still hot, maybe I would have. But since she let herself go, I can't go with that. I am going to go with someone from the old school, though. A very, very tough tag team of 2 brutes who just came out there kicking lots of ass, despite the fact that they were covered in makeup. And they are...
The Ascension.
Fucking unknowledgeable jackass. Go and watch a fucking old wrestling video, you jackass. Learn a
Comes
thing or
Connor, and here comes
I was just
the
saying that because they
Vic.
wore makeup. They wore makeup. I'm
2
just saying.
weeks.
Just saying they wore makeup.
I can talk at the same time as everyone, too.
We're
Fucking
the
fight.
Ascension.
It's the Road Warriors, one of the most badass tag teams of all time. They've kind of gotten lost in the history books over time, but people have really forgotten just how good these guys were. And it's not just about the fact that they were cool and came out with these spikes and kicked lots of ass. These guys were a draw. These guys were the main event over Ric fucking Flair, during the highlight of his career.
Yeah, there's a reason they call it a Road Warrior pop.
Just took it from you.
So
before I said
Road
it,
Warrior
damn.
is definitely number one.
All right, so let's break this down. A little recap here. My top 5 ended up being the Nation of Domination, the Hart Foundation, NWO, DX, and number 1 was the New Age Outlaws. Wego, what was your 5?
Oh, you're making me remember? I've already minimized my list. Alright, so I had the Motor City Machine Guns, Curryman and Shark Boy, Edge and Christian, The Shield, and DX.
Drew, remind us of your top 5.
I had Edge and Christian, the Mega Powers, the Shield, Cody, Rhodes / Stardust and Goldust, and Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit.
And Kalen, your top 5.
I had the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane. Number 4 was The Shield. Number 3, the Dudley Boys. Number 2, Edge and Christian. Number 1, the Hardys.
And Peyton.
Money Inc., Mega Powers, the Brain Busters, the Shield, and the Road Warriors.
Alrighty, guys, if you are interested in more of my list, go ahead and check that on smarkoutmoment.com. Make sure that you leave your comments below. Tell us what your list is, whether it's the top 3, top 5, top 50, however many you want to do. Leave those comments below. What do you think about our list? Who's got the best list of a bunch of us, and why, and all that other kind of stuff. That's our main event for this episode, but we still have one more thing that we need to take care of, and that is the Fantasy League. So stay tuned for part 5, because we're going to be doing all the stuff that is in relation to that, and then saying goodbye to you guys. So stay tuned, click on that next video. We'll see you in part 5 with the Fantasy League.